Genesis 19. The two angels came to Sodom in the evening while Lot was sitting in the city's gateway. When Lot saw them, he got up to meet them and bowed down with his face towards the ground. He said, "Here, my lords, please turn aside to your servant's home, stay the night, and wash your feet. Then you can be on your way early in the morning." "No," they replied, "we'll spend the night in the town square." He urged them persistently, so they turned aside with him and entered his house. He prepared a feast for them, including bread baked without yeast, and they ate. Before they could lie down to sleep, all the men, both young and old, from every part of the city of Sodom surrounded the house. They shouted to Lot, "Where are the men who came to you tonight? Bring them out to us so we may take carnal knowledge of them." Lot went out to them, shutting the door behind him. He said, "No, my brothers, don't act so wickedly. Look, I have two daughters who have never been intimate with a man. Let me bring them out to you, and you can do whatever you please. Only don't do anything to these men, for they have come under the protection of my roof." "Out of the way!" they cried. "This man came to live here as a foreigner, and now he dares to judge us. We'll do more harm to you than to them." They kept pressing in on Lot until they were close enough to break down the door. So the men inside reached out and pulled Lot back into the house, and they shut the door. Then they struck the men who were at the door of the house, from the youngest to the oldest, with blindness. The men outside wore themselves out trying to find the door. Then the two visitors said to Lot, "Who else do you have here? Do you have any son-in-laws, sons, daughters, or other relatives in the city? Get them out of this place, because we are about to destroy it. The outcry against this place is so great before the Lord that he has sent us to destroy it." Then Lot went out and spoke to his son-in-laws who were going to marry his daughters. He said, "Quick, get out of this place, because the Lord is about to destroy the city." But his son-in-laws thought he was ridiculing them. At dawn, the angel hurried Lot along, saying, "Get going, take your wife and your two daughters who are here, or else you will be destroyed when the city is judged." When Lot hesitated, the men grabbed his hand and the hands of his wife and two daughters, because the Lord had compassion on them. They led them away and placed them outside the city. When they had brought them outside, they said, "Run for your lives! Don't look behind you or stop anywhere in the valley. Escape to the mountains, or you will be destroyed." But Lot said to them, "No, please, Lord. Your servant has found favor with you, and you have shown me great kindness by sparing my life. But I am not able to escape to the mountains, because this disaster will overtake me, or I will die. Look, this town over here is close enough to escape to, and it's just a little one. Let me go there. It's just a little place, isn't it? Then I'll survive." "Very well," he replied. "I will grant this request to you and will not overthrow the town you mentioned. Run there quickly, for I cannot do anything until you arrive." This incident explains why the town was called Zoar. The sun had just risen over the land as Lot reached Zoar. Then the Lord rained down sulfur and fire on Sodom and Gomorrah. It was sent down from the sky by the Lord. So he overtook those cities and all the regions, including all the inhabitants of the cities and vegetation that grew on the ground. But Lot's wife looked back longingly and was turned into a pillar of salt. Abraham got up early in the morning and went to the place where he had stood before the Lord. He looked out towards Sodom and Gomorrah and all the land of the region. As he did so, he saw the smoke rising up from the land like the smoke from a furnace. So when God destroyed the city of of the region, God honored Abraham's request. He removed Lot from the midst of the destruction when he destroyed the cities Lot had lived in. Lot went up from Zoar with his 2 daughters and settled in the mountains because he was afraid to live in Zoar. So he lived in a cave with his 2 daughters. Later, the older daughter said to the younger, "Our father is old, and there is no man in the country to sleep with us, the way everyone does. Come, let's make our father drunk with wine so that we can go to bed with him and preserve our family line through our father." So that night they made their father drunk with wine, and the older daughter came in and went to bed with her father, but he was not aware of when she lay down with him and when she got up. So in the morning, the older daughter said to the younger, "Since I went to bed with my father last night, let's make him drunk again tonight. Then you can go in and go to bed with him, so you can preserve our family line through our father." So they made their father drunk that night as well, and the younger one came and went to bed with him. But he was not aware of when she lay down with him and when she got up. It was in this way both Lot's daughters became pregnant by their father. The older daughter gave birth to a son and named him Moab. He is the ancestor of the Moabites of today. The younger daughter also gave birth to a son and named him Ben-Ami. He is the ancestor of the Ammonites of today. Okay. One of the most, egregious passages in Scripture with bad stuff happening all over the place. So now, a lot of people will say that the actions that we're reading in here is the reason for the destruction. It's so crazy. This is the reason for their destruction, is what they try to do to Lot and to the angels. And no, the cry has gone out of the oppression that they have against the people. So the cry has gone out. This is only a verification that they already are in the wrong. Okay, so it's not because of this action that they take here that is why they're suddenly going to be destroyed. It is a demonstration of the fullness of what they are doing among everybody. So it's just an example par excellence, if you will. Okay, so the 2 angels come. Lot is sitting at the city gate. Why is Lot at the city gate? At the city gate are going to be officials. We also get a clue to this later on, where he says he was a foreigner who came in, and now he seeks to judge us. So at the city gate is where judicial function happens. So Lot apparently has become so ingrained in the city that he is seen as someone who can distribute justice among disputes that happen in the city. So when the angels come in, he realizes the time of day is not a good time for the visitors to be roaming the city. They will be taken advantage of. That's what he realizes, so he persuades them to come to his house. Now, what ends up happening is that when they get there, the city finds out that the men are there. Now, here's where there are various different views of what they're trying to do and why. I tend to lean towards the explanation that when there is in some way an understanding that these are possibly angelic beings. Lot also seems to be familiar with them. So if Lot seems to be familiar with them, and he was at the Oaks of Mamre in previous times with Abraham when God showed up to him, maybe he's familiar with when angels show up. Maybe there's something in that day and age that people would have known and seen. You got a serious issue with Lot, though. Well, we'll get to that. So Lot is, in some way, demonstrating his righteousness by what he does. He extends hospitality. He is also a protector for them. So when the men are seeking to have the angels come out to them, there is the thought that what they are hoping to do is to duplicate what was happening in Genesis 6, when the sons of God came down to the daughters of men, and then there were the Nephilim, there are the Rephaim, so they are hoping in some way to make some kind of bargain and or to get hold of some angelic blessing in some way. There is something nefarious that they are trying to usurp these men and have some kind of blessing come upon them. What exactly that is and how it is not explained in the text. But if you're taking into account Genesis 6 in this situation, that makes some sense of what the men are hoping. That it's not about an act of homosexuality. It is an act of intermingling human and angels is what they're seeking to do. Now, a lot of people will get upset at the fact that Lot says, no, don't take the men. I have 2 daughters. Take my daughters. There's a couple of ways of seeing this. The daughters may not actually be in the household. Okay, so the daughters may not actually be here. So Lot may be trying to appease them with something he's not actually giving them. There's that thought. I kind of like the thought, but I'm not sold on that one. There's also the idea that he knows it will be refused because the men because they are engaged, the men of the city would know that his daughters are engaged. They would be violating the rights of the husbands to be who are citizens of the city. And so they would be violating that, and they're not going to say yes to it. So in either case, there is the thought that Lot is offering something that he knows will be refused. Okay, so in the same way that you might ask for a Diet Coke because you're diabetic, and I'm going to offer you anything that has sugar in it, knowing you will refuse it. It doesn't matter if it's Coke, if it's Pepsi, if it's Sprite, I'm just going to keep offering you stuff that I know you'll refuse. But I'm showing hospitality in a way. I'm trying to negotiate the situation. He's doing what he can to negotiate the situation. I don't think he actually ever intends to give his daughters. I think he is showing his commitment to the hospitality of the stranger is what's going on. It doesn't work. They're not appeased by it. They want the angelic beings to be given up. And then we have the angels intervening. Okay, let me get caught up on chat. I'm watching. The way he did his daughters, just treating them like a practical trading piece to keep his guests from being assaulted. Well, it's not right what they did to him. When they're in the mountains, but can't help but feel a certain amount of pity for them. Yeah, absolutely. I think they felt pretty diminished as women in general with what he said. I don't know what they're thinking, and I don't want to project, but you can't help but wonder. Oh, yeah. And good morning, Shiny Penny. Yeah, from our modern ears, this seems totally outrageous and out of place. I'm convinced there's something else going on here, that he is in some way offering something that wouldn't be accepted. So it's not about the offer of the daughters. It is about the men who would not be appeased in any way. It is a demonstration of the oppression that is going out, that people do whatever seems right in their own eyes. They are willing to oppress any and everybody, including the stranger, the foreigner. And they even accuse Lot of this. They're coming against Lot. So they oppress the poor, the widow, the orphan, and the foreigner is what's going on within Sodom. So the men, now notice, reached outside and pulled Lot back in. Now it's mentioned them as men. The Old Testament likes to do this. It likes to say the men, then it likes to say the angel, and then it flips back and forth. So in some ways, we can see that they must be an angelic being, a messenger of God. That's what an angel is. It's a role. So they are messengers of God. They are men who are here. There is something perhaps of divine within them, of the spiritual realm. But aside from that, we can't say more. They strike the men with blindness, who still do their best to try to get to the door. They're not able to do that. And then the men are trying to find out who they can save. Okay? There's not 10. The city's being destroyed. So, do you have any son-in-laws? He goes to them, and Lot went and spoke with his son-in-laws. Quick, get out of it. But his son-in-laws thought he was ridiculing them. That's an interesting thing. Like, he He, like one taunting his eyes at his son-in-laws. These men mistakenly thought Lot was ridiculing them and their lifestyle. Their response illustrates how morally insensitive they had become. So he is trying to save these son-in-laws. So we don't know all of what happens, but we know that Lot has moved towards the city. Lot was captured from the city. Lot then remains in the city. Lot moves into a position of having some position in the city, and his son-in-laws do not listen to it. So now we have the angels taking them out. Now, what's interesting, Lot at this point, Lot is not honoring his wife and daughters by fleeing. He is still like in shock and awe over what is going to happen, and he has to be let out by the hand. He has to be let out by the hand as he goes out. Maybe it's because he thought he could be within the city and be righteous and make an influence and make a difference, and he didn't. And maybe he thought he's in shock of his son-in-laws. Maybe he's in shock of they would not respect him coming into his house. Whatever it is, he's not ready to run. And then when he's told to run to the mountains, he negotiates. Like, hey, the mountains are too far away. The mountains are too far away. I can't make it to there. How about if I just go to that little city? Just a little one. Just a little one. I'll be able to go there. So they allow that. Now, Zoar, therefore, after this, Zoar, the place, Zoar apparently means little place in light of the wordplay of little, Mitzar. So you have Mitzar and you have Zoar. So there is a place. So it's a little town. I can go to the little town. The little town will be okay. We'll make an impact there. But then when the destruction happens, we know Lot's wife turns back longingly, and she's turned into a pillar of salt. To look intently, to gaze, Lot's wife apparently identified with the doomed city and thereby showed lack of respect of God's provision for salvation. She, like her daughters later, had allowed the thinking to influence by the culture of Sodom. I don't know. I don't know if I totally buy that. What if she is looking back in disbelief that it's being destroyed? What if she looks back, like she looked back intently? She looked back in mourning over her friends who were dead. Like, there's more ways to see this instead of, I wish I was there. But also, she wasn't ready to run either. So maybe it is. Maybe it is that traditional thinking that we have. Shiny Penny, you think he still wanted to be in proximity to the place he was to be delivered from? We do that now when we are forced to move. We want to still stay close to the thing we're being called from. That's a fair argument. So Lot's wife turns around. I think we make a huge deal out of that. I don't think it's as important to the story as Lot is. Okay? So now Lot, after suffering this, why does Lot not go back to Abraham? He knows where Abraham is. If he goes back to Abraham, he has lost his wife, he has lost his city, he has lost everything that he went away from Abraham with. Like, and where are all his servants and his household? He went full. He had such a household that in so many flocks that his herdsmen and Abraham's herdsmen were fighting with each other. What did he do to squander all of that? And why was his household and all of his servants not enough to be 10 righteous people? Like, if his household was large enough that he had to separate from Abraham, then his household should have been strong enough and should have been good enough that it was 10 plus people. What's happened to all of them in the time that he has been in the city? We don't know. Apparently, he has lost them because he is just fleeing for his life with his wife and 2 daughters and nothing more. One reason, I think it is because if she is longing to be in that city, then she's not in the position to go to the place of salvation. Yeah, I'm just saying is, I think sometimes we spend too much time on her and give a pass to Lot for having not left sooner. Yeah, the household wasn't righteous either. There we go. Yeah, he has lost his way, and he flees to the city. Why does he not, after the city, go back to Abraham? And I think it's because he either, and his daughters think, they think the whole world's been destroyed. Well, their city was destroyed. They went to Zoar. The daughters know that Zoar exists. Why don't they just sneak out and go to Zoar and find a husband? You know, there's a lot of questions there. Jesus did say Lot's wife. Yes, that's fair enough. So that maybe that's a reason why we spend time on her. It's just Jesus mentions her. Okay. So Abraham gets up in the morning, and now he sees the smoke rising. What does Abraham do in response to seeing the smoke rising? Does he go, oh, well, I didn't get saved? Does he wonder what happened to Lot? Why doesn't Abraham send a servant to go look for Lot to see if Lot had escaped? I have so many questions here, and maybe these things happen. Maybe he did send a servant out to search for Lot, but by the time he got to Zoar, he wasn't around. Maybe he never found him. You know, why does the daughters, like I said, not remember? We were just in Zoar. There were some good-looking men there. Let's go back to Zoar. Instead, the daughters here. You want to talk about miraculous in some way? It tells the story as about 2 nights and 2 pregnancies in 2 nights. Usually that's not how things happen. Usually the first try doesn't always work. And usually, you know, so like there's some piece of the story that maybe it's you know, shortened for sake of the telling of the story. But the daughters have ill motives, but they're operating out of fear. They're operating out of loneliness, and Dad's not functioning well. That's clear. And then we never have anything more of the story of Lot doing anything for God or following God. And we have 2 people that are mentioned here. Moab. Let's see if it tells me what Moab means without going to look it up. The Moab meaning is not certain. The name sounds like Hebrew for from our father. So from our father, that's kind of a, you know, not a great name. And then Ben-Ami, son of my people. Like the account of Moab's birth, the story is probably included in the narrative as portraying the Ammonites, another paternal enemy of Israel, in a negative light. So yeah, so these are relatives, but they're your enemies. We're often fighting them. That's often what's happening. Okay. We got ads coming in. Questions on any of that? Lot, you done messed up, Aaron, and it's not good. And now it's going to be a ongoing consequence for the people of God, which just becomes one of the reasons why some people argue that Abraham should have negotiated down to 5. Still wouldn't have counted. There still weren't 5 people. But there's something about the consequences of Lot for Abraham negotiating and not negotiating enough and far enough. And couldn't Abraham have said, hey, what if I go and I rescue the people? I go get Lot out of there before you do this. I don't know.